Well, I'm fond of this poem. It's called The Magic Hand. I've done it so many different versions. It was an opera in Europe with classical music. It was in the Galactic Symphonies. It was on my album with Brian Wilson. And it'll probably be on many more, Uh, it's called The Magic Hand. And I love this poem. I probably wrote it 1,000 years ago. Or at least 30 or 40. The Magic Hand. Poems can never make adequate explanations for man and his many hesitations and his constant deviation from what is real. They love me through wooden eyes. The tree of love in one heart lies. The bough brushes gently along the ground, for waiting souls long to touch it. It's mystical and deep and sorely needing and cautious and slow to constant heating, and has been eternally bleeding. It lies in deserts and in the sand. In mountains one can sense the hand that molded, shelf by shelf, the lower and the higher self, and placed man somewhere in between what is and what seems to have been, the spark of all and the machine. It asked him only to obey the heart within, the only way. From ancient histories of the past, through destructions and nuclear blast, the only breath that one sees last is the breath of love. Through its nostrils clean, it breathed pure air, till man put hate and impurities there, pervading the atmosphere, released by thought, separating each from the eternal ought, not ought to be or ought to do, but the ought of spirit, which told the secret there is no man, no woman, no sex, no creed, no race, but only spirit on a constant chase toward itself, shelf by shelf, building, growing, and forever flowing. The hour is approaching, the animal is dying, the soul is moving upward and forever trying. Dissolving all that came before, the new man speaks as one who knows, not with words of brass or steel-edged lies or pleading groans or cries. He speaks of all that there can be in living the life of eternity, which does not begin for visitors of the earth, but those that live in the here and now. The dead are walking down the street. Look at them. Look at them. Each other's eyes constantly meet, and they know in their heart that death is necessary for one to grow. They must die to old thoughts. They must die to old habits and live with what is new, and that is man, that is a heart that flows into all hearts, that lifts up and laughs and purifies. On the other side of death is life, and life is loving, and zombies who gather together in congregations and mass strangulations feel the bubble is bursting because their soul is thirsting for a touch of the hand, the magic hand, that with fingers finer than pure gold, fingers not made of flesh or bone, fingers that are all things. This magic hand echoes as a symbol in every land, that itself it is a part of every woman, every child, and every man.
Steve,
Yes, sir.
you've worked with some interesting and well-known people. Which of the ones have made the greatest contribution to your work, or that you've benefited the most professionally from working with them?
I've benefited from many of them. One of the highlights of my life is been P.F. Sloan, who I am a huge, I would say I was a, I don't know, I like the word fan, but I love P.F. Sloan since I was a teenager. I was so influenced when I heard Eve of Destruction and Let Me Be, That's All I Ask of You. You know, the Turtles version was the one I liked, and so many of his songs that are just wonderful. And I got the opportunity to work with him, and he had me open a few shows for him, quite a few, as a poet. We did a song called Ginger Street, which is in a movie called Remembering Nigel, that Frank Housen, who's an incredible director, and that's all because of P.F. He got me to do a Beach Boy project called, it was Pet Sounds and the Friends album. I had 2 songs on the Friends, and I'm not much of a singer, but he got me to sing Be Still, one of my songs in it they did those two albums, and that was such a highlight. I loved working with him. We did some fun songs together. He's taught me a lot. He's a good soul. We went to India together with his producer John Tiven, and we had a ball. And he's been a major influence. He's a strong spiritual force. Also, I loved working with Bill Duke, the director, and recently with Michael Ford, that did a lot of stuff with The Doors, and Lisa Thayer. And also Brian and Dennis Wilson, very strong influences, and very strong. Brian has been such a help to me, and Dennis and I, sometimes we would argue, but what a great soul and what a talent that people have not recognized. I think he's just as talented. I love some of my songs with him: Little Bird, Be Still, Time to Live in Dreams. And I started out about 10, 11, 12, 13 years old writing articles about world peace. And I wanted to, I thought all the wars and things, I was really anti-war, and I still am in a lot of ways. And I would say that this album that released last year with Brian Wilson, or 2 years ago, A World of Peace Must Come, which I did about 40 years ago with him, was great to see it come about. I say that I have done a lot of other projects that have been fun, children's things, but I would say that the growth has been that in my evaluation of what I thought peace was easier than it is. And I know that only a peace that is founded in a reality is workable, because just turning the other cheek and just being loving but not taking strong stands and having principles, when people try and invade this way of life, it's opened me up to a new dimension. So some of my simplistic beliefs have evolved where I don't think it's an easy process. And I don't know, I think it's possibly doable, but whether it'll ever be totally come into being, I don't know.
So you think peace from strength, if one were to put it that way, is a more mature approach?
I think peace from strength, but I want to be careful with that, because I still believe that in the values of, I guess you would say, that not having so much greed at being the center of everything, and seeing the good parts of maybe capitalism or like that, as opposed to the bad, where people get oppressed, where there's a constant poor class. I would like to address a lot of those issues. Whether it's possible to do that within this system without having it evolve into something. I don't like the separation of people into this person made it, that invisible line. To me, it's like they've attained something I can't. They are something more special. I don't really think that's true, and I don't think the people that achieve those things necessarily can teach much of us anything.
In terms of artistic kinds of things, do you have a kind of project that you're going to at this point? Is it poetry? Is it songs? Is it performance? Or is it going to come out of this notion of world peace, or are you open to other kinds of things?
I'm open to all kinds of things. I would say that I'm doing a new album now with Mark Lynette on Ms. Music, which is a division, I believe, of Citadel. And the owner, Carol, has signed me to do an album. And on the album there will be some of my Beach Boy songs. Carney and Wendy Wilson are going to sing Little Bird. Marilyn Wilson and her sister Diane and Ginger, that were the Honeys, are going to sing California Feeling, a song I wrote with Brian. And I'm going to do a lot of poems, and other people will be contributing. David Courtney, from England, that wrote all the songs with Leo Sayer, and Roger Daltrey is contributing a track. I'm very excited about this, and I hope to do more inspirational projects, more books, more spoken word projects. I'm working with a classical composer in his 20s, Ollie Helnwein, that I love. I'm working with David Marks of the Beach Boys on an album. I got a lot of projects going. I'm very excited about them, and I feel that I've just begun, and like I'm entering the second teenage period.